Hey y'all, last couple of videos have been interesting. They have led to me creating this somewhat different style of video, and I'll look to your comments. Hold on, let's see who's texting me. All right, this guy always likes to ping me early in the morning. He'll probably want to call me in a minute to discuss this or that, who knows. But anyway, I wanted to jot down what was in my mind from these things that have happened most recently. So let's start with the most recent. Let's just recap these recent reality glitches. Over the years, I would say I've lost count of all of the bizarre glitches in reality, the proof that it's a simulation, how it shifts around. If you've been listening to me since 2016, you know I've documented my thoughts, my ponderings, my actual observations, the bizarre. I've done it all. So for clarity, let's recap the last two. They do tie into the rest of this video. I am going somewhere with it. I'm not just recapping them for no reason. But you know about this event that I had not long ago, just like 2 videos ago. The box of the cat litter. It's crazy, I know. Uh, in fact, I can't help. I've got to wonder if this is some sort of a wink from reality itself, drawing this comparison of Schrodinger's cat in a box. You know, the whole experiment, the mind experiment, the thought experiment, whatever it is. It's, you know, when it comes to that idea of the observer and which reality is going to occur based on that. I mean, it makes me wonder if there's a parallel there because of that experience. I just so you recall, I carried this thing, the cat litter box. I complained about how big it was, its weight, its size. It was huge. It was noticeably taller than the existing litter box that was still being used. So I lugged that thing into the house. I set it right down next to the other one. And it was notably taller, like 3 inches. I certainly noticed that. It was locked in my memory by my awareness. A few days later, I walked by it and they were now identical. They changed. The exact same size. The giant box I'd struggled with had shrunk, or the world had edited itself. Who knows? The one thing I do know is the damn thing changed its size. It, 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 so that's glitch. That's just a recent glitch. Okay, let's tie this into my last video. This is glitch 2. The very last video I did on the breakfast, the Breakfast Club. While editing my last video about the Breakfast Club Mandela effects, you know, it was actually like 3 or 4 Mandela effects we called out in that video, but I know that I added a specific piece of personal information while I was making that video. I made the decision to do it, and then I clicked the button and I uploaded. So I did add that piece of information. I immediately played it back to myself from YouTube. I usually do this always. For a short video, I let it run back. It doesn't take long to, and you know, it doesn't take long to just see how it came out, how I sounded. You know, I can critique my voice if I was sniffing or you know, clearing my throat too much, whatever stupid thing I do. It's a feedback. Okay. So I'm listening to my cadence, all that. Anyway, that piece of information that I know that I inserted, that I know I recorded, that little piece of information was gone, completely gone. And it was not clumsily cut, but it was perfectly removed. And I should say, too, I noticed right off the bat of the video, there seemed to be a lag, a little bit of an offness from the picture I was showing to what I was describing. And that's not how this usually works. Usually, just so you know, I use X Recorder. I've been using X Recorder for a long time in my phone. It's the quickest way to record, you know, and I don't edit. I just don't. I just record and upload. That's it. And I'm looking at the screen and it does exactly what I'm doing and exactly what I'm looking at. The only glitch that happens with this, though, is it'll time out after 10 minutes if I do nothing. If I don't touch the screen, if I don't move it like this, it'll blank out a timeout and it'll end the video with me talking in mid-sentence. That's the one issue with this, is I've got to be staring at the screen. And sometimes I just forget. Anyway, it was intentionally removed. I know this with absolute certainty. I didn't do it. That information was a little piece of personal information that I even contemplated whether or not I should include this. I just didn't know. I was like, that might be putting too much out there about who I am. But I decided to include it. I said, it's no big deal. I'll put that in there. So it somehow was edited out, not by me. It was edited out perfectly. So this is a curious side note. When you're listening to that video, I paused for just a moment to make a remark about having just witnessed a UFO, because I was standing in my garage. Very redneck, I know. I was standing there in the middle of the night, my garage door up. I'm looking at the stars. I'm looking at the sky. That's where I'm recording. You may even hear some background sounds of the outdoors in that video, but that's what I was doing. I do that quite often. I get out of the house. I don't want to wake people up while I'm talking in a video. Currently, I'm at my office, so I'm doing it here. But if I'm at home in the middle of the night, I'm just going outside to get away from everybody and just talk it out. So, was it a UFO? Did it step in to edit my video? I don't know. It's just a side note. However, there's an obvious conclusion here. These are not just weird moments. These are glitches in the simulation. They're data points that tell us the reality we're taking for granted is constructible. It's malleable. It's a big point. It leaves me with this screaming question. If this is a construct, what is the user manual? Isn't that fair? Is that not a fair question? We know this is a construct. I know this is a construct. That is absolutely, undoubtedly. This is some sort of construct, some sort of simulation. Somebody made it, and I am in it. I can't help but ask this question. What is the user manual? All right, let's switch over to the philosophical part. This is the part that kept me up at night. This question became urgent for me when I found myself drowning in a sea of opposing views. And that's the beauty of this reality, is its duality is built into it. Everything from nothing matters to we're trapped in a prison, and the phrase that resonates with me started to feel like an intellectual cop-out. Even my wife's well-meaning, you'll find all this out when you die. It felt like a command to embrace spiritual stagnation. And it just grated against my soul. It's like, no, I'm not just going to shrug my shoulders here and say, whatever. It all means something. We don't know what it is. We can't figure it out. I don't need to. No, I can't. I just can't do that. I can't accept that. In the middle of the night, without any plan, without any structure, I just started writing. These ideas started writing themselves, I should say. I don't even know if I was writing them. I just started thinking these thoughts and jotting them down. It wasn't a conclusion that I was trying to prove. I didn't wake up saying, I have this idea and I want to prove it. I had no end result here. I was just struggling with the frustration of not knowing, and I wanted to just start jotting down my ideas. I built a foundation from the one thing that I hold on to the most important thing I do not want to glitch. That is, whoops, didn't mean for that. Dog on it. What's happening with my screen here? Hold on. All right, the most important thing that I do not want to glitch is my own awareness. It ended up as 23 points. 23, yeah. That build on each other. It just happened to be there. Now these points, we don't need to review all 23 today. That would take far too long. But we do need the first three. These are the unshakable ground floor. And, this might end up as we unpack it. It might become 24, 25. It might become 22, 21. We might add, we might condense. Who knows? We'll see where it goes. I'll look to your feedback. But this ground should be unshakable. Or is the word unshakable with an E? Unshakable? Or is it unshakable without the E? Just a question I should throw out there. Anyway, let's unpack this unshakable ground. Let's see if we got a foundation that's worthy of being built on. The first three moves, the foundation after the glitch. And I should, fair warning, tell you that this might sound just a little bit new agey, but am I wrong here? Am I wrong with this move one? I am aware. That's a shout out to Rennie D. In other words, in the gaming model, the player spawns. As the player, I spawn into this construct, this reality. Amidst all the glitches and edits, one thing remains constant. The one who is noticing them. You can doubt my recount about the size of the litter box. You can doubt the video edit. But you cannot doubt that you are the one experiencing the doubt. That awareness, the I am, is the only cheat code that never fails. It's the press start button of this entire reality. Before any graphics load, the player exists. Word hint, and this is a shout out to Jordan Maxwell, who I noticed always does this, always gives you word hints. The word exist comes from the Latin existere, which means to stand forth, to emerge. Your awareness is what allows you to stand forth into this experience. You've emerged into the game. Move two. Okay, so we just went from a foundational. Let's slow down for a second. Foundational concept number one, I am. If you disagree, if you think there's a better place for us to start, a better foundation, love to hear it. Love to hear the back and forth between y'all. Love to hear, if we have agreement that this is a good starting point. That's good to hear. So let's move to point two. The game engine is ideational. In other words, I exist is an idea. Now, what's this player made of? Our first move, I am. What is that? It's not physical, it's a thought, it's an idea. If the one rock solid certainty we have is itself an idea, think about that. The one certainty we have is an idea. Then the fundamental substance of this game, of this construct, the fundamental substance of this construct is its source code. It must be the realm of ideas itself. That is the construct. That is the source code, is ideas for this reality. That's, I think, a logical conclusion. Tell me if I'm wrong here. The physical world is the stunning output, but the game is running on the source code of ideation. That's your code for this game. It's stunning, but it's all based and built on the ideas. Word hint, look at the word idea. I-D-E-A. I is the player. Dia is Latin for goddess. An idea is literally a divine fragment from the I. It is a creative spark from the player's consciousness. Your thoughts aren't just random noise. They are your creative units, your packets of potential reality. This isn't a metaphor, it is the mechanics. It's the mechanics of this simulation. Let me pause here. Let me ask you to stop and verify this for yourself. Does this, and I'm not going to say resonate, that's a cop-out. Does this hold? Do you find any conflict with this, with the establishment of the first two moves? If this is going to be our foundation, we've got to stress test this. We've got to challenge it. Does it pass? It does or doesn't. For me, it passes. Unless one of you gives me a profound enough statement to make me question this foundation, to shatter right through it. If anybody can give me that, for right now, this is the foundation. This is the core of what we're building, this 23-point, whatever I'm building here. This 23-point argument, thesis, whatever. If you don't think that this holds, click away. Don't build your house on sand. Because if these don't hold, we're building a house on sand. It has to be foundational. Your beliefs are that house. This is your worldview. All right, let's just keep moving forward. Move 3. Player privileges. The I is the source. Think about where I've transitioned here. I've transitioned from the awareness to the foundational power of ideas as coding source language to this reality. Now I've moved it to us as players, the player privilege. The I is the source. We are the source of the ideas. Okay. We have a player, that's awareness. And we have a game engine made of ideas. This leads to move 3. The I is the source and sustainer of its ideas. You are the admin of your own mental server. You might object, hold on, that doesn't feel right. Sometimes a thought pops into my head that doesn't feel like it came from me. A sudden solution to a problem, a random memory, a warning, a feeling, or even what feels like a direct message. And this is a fantastic point. I've described that happening to me so many times in my life. It's saved my life more than once. Anyway, it's absolutely true. It's profound. I've experienced it in profound ways that felt like a loving parental guide intervening. That's what I would call this glitch in the last video. A parental guide intervening. Something from outside of me and this construct. Here's the key. That experience doesn't obliterate your I. It reinforces it. Because to even recognize that an idea feels external, you must first have a stable, continuous I to experience it as external. That download enters your field of awareness. You are the one who receives it, interprets it, and chooses what to do with it. The very act of differentiating between my thought and a thought given to me is the ultimate proof that of your sovereign awareness. It proves moves 1 and 2 are rock solid. Let's upgrade our model. This isn't just a single player game. It has a co-op mode. There's other players, or perhaps a developer, who can send you messages, join your session, or even drop in a power-up when you're in a dire need. But you, the I, are still the one holding the controller. You have the final say on whether to accept the invite, trust the message, or use the power-up. Your admin privileges, your free will are never overridden. In fact, they are essential to make the co-op mode meaningful. Okay, word hint. This is about responsibility, the ability to respond. Not as a heavy burden, but as a player's power. The game is responding to your inputs, your ideas. Your ideas are the primary input device. You are not a passive student. You're an active player with skin in the game, shaping your experience from the inside out. Here's another word hint. Con means with, plus science, or science, knowing, okay, conscience. Conscience, with knowing. This isn't just a moral sense. This is your direct developer link. Con, this prefix means with, together, or jointly. It implies connection, a channel, a cooperative link. Science comes from the sire, to know. This isn't about accumulated facts, scientia, or scientia, I don't know how to pronounce it, but about knowing in the verb sense, an active, present tense, certain knowledge. Your conscience is your joint knowing, or knowing with. It is the secure, encrypted channel through which your player consciousness, I, receives real-time data packets from the developer, the source, the logos, the God. It's not just a feeling of right or wrong, it's your in-game navigation system providing course correction and strategic alerts that are perfectly coherent with the game's constructive source code. You are the one with boots on the ground. You are in the game. You are making the moves. Here's the in-game description. The consciousness, or the conscience, is a permanent buff granted to all players. It provides a real-time data feedback from the developer, offering strategic guidance aligned with the game's core constructive mechanics. Ignoring its alerts may result in quest failures or unnecessary difficulty spikes. So that's a pretty big thing we just said here. I took two grounding principles, 1 and 2, which brought us to move 3, which is pretty foundational. The next logical question, or level, or move, this now leads to the most critical skill in the game, whether you're playing solo or in co-op. Discernment. Word hint, discernment. The deeper breakdown, dis, means apart. Sneer, to sift, to separate. This is your in-game item analyzer. Dis, this prefix signifies apart, asunder, or in different directions. It's the act of creating separation and distinction. Cernere. This Latin root means to sift, to separate, or to decide. Think of a gold miner sifting gravel to find nuggets, or a judge separating truth from falsehood. Therefore, discernment is the active, practiced skill of sifting apart. It is the process you use to take raw data of ideas, data of ideas, whether they seem to come from your own mind, another player, or the developer channel, and run them through your truth filters. You sift the constructive gold from the destructive gravel. You separate the genuine power-up from the cleverly disguised virus. In-game description: discernment is an active skill tree unlocked by Conscience Perk. It allows the player to inspect the elemental properties of any idea, belief, or guidance, revealing its alignment with constructive truth or destructive falsehood energy. A high discernment stat is essential for identifying loot, avoiding phishing attempts, and interpreting developer messages correctly. Together, they form your core navigation suite. The conscience is the data stream. Discernment is the software you use to interpret and act on it. One provides the signal, the other provides the analysis. Final thoughts. We started with my account of the glitching cat litter box and the mysteriously edited video. We talked about players, game engines, and the co-op mode. I hope those comparisons are helpful. We have actually been discussing and rediscovering a foundational truth about the architecture of existence in gamer terms. Player, game, admin privileges. They are not just metaphors. What unfolded in my mind the other night and what we've just unpacked can be translated into a more philosophical language. It doesn't lose its power. It adds a certain gravity. So let's do that just for fun. Let's see the bedrock we're standing on laid bare. This is it. Let's put it in a more philosophical tone. The first principle, a philosophical exposition. Article 1, the prime axiom of existence. Whereas doubt may be applied to all objects of perception and conception, there stands one fact which doubt itself cannot erode, the fact of awareness itself. For to doubt is to engage in the act of the mind, and this act presupposes a conscious subject wherein it resides. Thus, from the very effort to deny it, we are compelled to affirm the indubitable truth: the conscious self exists. This is not a conclusion derived from sensation, but the primary condition for any experience whatsoever. It is the foundational reality upon which all other realities are built. Article 2, the axiom of noetic realm. From the prime axiom follows a necessary corollary: the assertion, the self exists, is not the self in itself, but a representation of it, a thought, an idea. If the existence of the self is certain, and this certainty is known to us as an idea, then the medium of this knowing must itself be real. Therefore, the realm of ideas, the noetic sphere, is a fundamental and veritable aspect of existence. It is the domain wherein reality becomes intelligible to the conscious self, not a phantom echo of the physical, but as a genuine plane of being. Article 3, the axiom of subjective causality. Having established the conscious self and the realm of ideas, we must now inquire into their relation. Observation reveals that the self is not a passive receptacle for ideas, but their very source and sustainer. Ideas arise within and are held by and dissipate according to the focus and intention of the subjective self. The self is, therefore, the uncaused cause of its own ideation. In the ontology of the mind, the I is the sovereign source from which the tapestry of its thought is woven. This is not to say it creates ex nihilo, but that it is the active, formal cause that gives shape, order, and life to its own cognitive universe. Article 4, the axiom of relational reception, the co-op mode. An objection arises: certain ideations possess a qualitative character of externality, as if received from a source beyond the subjective self. This phenomenology of reception, however, does not negate the preceding axioms, but necessarily presupposes them. For the very recognition of an idea as external requires a stable, self-identical subject to serve as the ground of that reception. The capacity to differentiate between endogenous and exogenous ideation is not a violation of sovereignty, but its highest expression. Thus, we affirm that the sovereign self can exist in a relational modality, receiving communication without diminishment of its own causal power. This establishes the possibility of a collaborative metaphysics where the I remains the final arbiter of all it contains, even that which is gracefully given. The implication for further inquiry, this framework acknowledges the full spectrum of experience, from sovereign creativity to guided reception. It thus presents a universe that is intelligible, participatory, and intelligently rational. This, however, begets the paramount question: by what principle shall the conscious self exercise its arbitral power? Having established that we can receive and evaluate ideas, we are now compelled to ask, what is the criterion for distinguishing the veridical communication from the deceptive, the constructive, from the from communication from the deceptive, the constructive from the destructive? How do we sort that out? What is the criteria for sorting that out? The foundation is laid. The next step in the exposition must be an inquiry into the nature of truth. Do you agree with that? Do you agree that our next step is to move in that direction? This is how we set it in gamer language. The next logical question or level. This now leads to the most critical skill in the game, whether you're playing solo or in co-op, and it's discernment. And then we broke down discernment. So, do you agree that that is our next step here? Did we establish the first three moves properly? Was that the logical flow and build? Would discernment be the next one, or do you think another one should be more prevalent? I look to your thoughts, your comments. Thanks for listening. Hope you're having a great week, and God bless.